Hello, everyone, and welcome back to There and Back Again, a friend's journey. I gotta, yes, I'm on a roll with that lately. So yeah, this is good.
Third time in a row.
This is the third time in a row.
Very
roll,
good.
roll.
Did I say roll?
I said roll.
Okay.
No, I said that. So I am Father Jared Cohn, also known as the Battle Axe, and I have with me Sting, also known as Grace Weatherhead. So
Yes, Sting.
that's a reference to our last episode. To get that, you're gonna have to go back and watch the previous episode. This is how I hook you. So you're like, oh, this is the first time you noticed it, and then you're like, oh no, I got to go back and watch that now. So
Right.
actually, you don't. So just to be clear, you don't have to do that. So we did not plan these out well enough to have that kind of interlocking
No.
plot arc. Is it plot arc? Would that be the way to describe?
Plot hole.
No, plot hole would be.
Joking.
So like, plot holes are what like Christopher Nolan falls through all the time. So
I don't know who that is.
he's a famous director. He's a good director.
Oh.
But he has like,
Who's he direct?
what's that? Well, so he's directed like the 3 Batman movies with Christian Bale. So those, Interstellar, the one that I really don't like. What is the one with Leonardo DiCaprio? Where they go into dreams? What is that?
Go into dreams?
They go into dreams.
Unfamiliar. Oh, but wait.
Inception, that's what it is.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Weird. Just came across that movie the other day.
Yes. So Inception,
Okay.
trying to think. So a lot of his other stuff, it's really, really good. Inception just kind of left this weird taste in my mouth. Yeah, didn't care for it. So, but we won't go into that. This is not a film review except of Lord of the Rings.
I mean, it kind of is.
It is. Well, it is, but
For me.
for you. But it's film and books for me. So film's also included. So
Oh, yeah. So it is a film review
it is a film review of sorts. So
of sorts. Although we do not.
do not what?
We do not characterize ourselves in that way.
No, well, that's true.
Categorize.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, we characterize ourselves as intellectuals, as you can see. So,
Well, here's what's wrong for me. I don't know about you. I didn't wear my smart glasses.
that's true. I don't try to fool anybody by wearing them. So,
That's what I should know. Yeah.
so
I don't absolutely need glasses to see. So I was like, I'm gonna wear my glasses tonight. No.
yeah. So what she really sees right now is just a blurry form of someone. She doesn't even know if it's really me sitting here. So,
If it weren't for the voice, I wouldn't know. If it weren't for the voice and the bad jokes.
yes,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
they were bad jokes. It's okay.
I'm joking.
You're joking about my bad jokes.
Yes. Oh man.
Oh my gosh. So how are you doing? Oh, sorry. You had like a thought.
No, that's perfect. My thought comes next, later.
Okay. Gotcha.
Doing well.
Really
no.
the script.
No, doing well. Let's see. It's Monday. We're recording on Monday, the 7th of February, 2022, in the year 2022
Of our Lord.
of our Lord. So getting back into like a regular work week, which is weird because last week we had the storm to end all storms.
Yes.
Not really, but we got a lot of snow.
Yeah.
And
Were we
these
supposed to get more snow this coming weekend?
I heard someone say that, like
Yeah.
my mom. I think.
Oh, yeah.
said
That is your mom did say that. Yeah.
But I think I did see something a couple days ago for later this week, like some percent chance of precipitation.
Nice. So, start up of a full work week.
Full work week, because last week the office was closed on Thursday and then it opened at like 1 on Friday, but I didn't really have anything I needed to do there besides pick up bulletins, which were not there.
Surprise, surprise. It's like they couldn't get there.
Yeah, come on, UPS. I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So that made for a nice long weekend. Watched
Nice.
some movies with the family, which was
Nice.
nice. Watched what's it called? Black Widow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I don't know if I can like make an actual like recommendation for it. I thought it was good. It was very so this really is turning into a movie review.
It is.
It was very emotional, especially towards the beginning. Like it will move you.
Will it?
I think
Really?
so.
Okay. Well, then I'm a little interested. So I've kind of
Yeah.
like tried to avoid Marvel because they try to connect everything. So then I feel like I'm missing something if I haven't watched everything. So
I don't think like there were probably lots of bits and pieces that,
sure.
a Marvel-minded person would have been able to connect. I am
Okay.
not such and still found it. And I stepped out of the room for like 2 times. So I missed a couple things, but for the most part,
Flowed pretty well.
it flowed pretty well. And yeah, it just tears you up a bit at the beginning and kind of all throughout the movie. But
Good.
overall, yeah, I think
Good. I think a good movie should wreck you a little bit.
as should Beauty.
Yes.
Which we will get into.
Yes, we will get to. So yeah.
But before we go there, how are you, Father Jared?
Great. And yeah, just also so beauty, like the beauty of the snow in many ways was like just kind of a great thing to behold because it's been because I think last year we did get snow, but I think I might have been on retreat. And I don't think we got that much snow on retreat and it was gone by the time I got back. So like last year I didn't really experience all that much snow. So this was kind of a new experience for at least in the last couple of years. So it was kind of, yeah, it was good to have some snow, like enough snow to actually be able to like pack and see it kind of like, just covering everything. So that was great. And the work week is, it's nice to be back. And this coming weekend, big, exciting stuff happening. Priest assignments will be announced this coming weekend. So that's kind of like, that'll kind of put finally some things like, because that's like been like, do you know if you're staying? Do you know what's going on? And it's like, can't say that now. So it's like this coming weekend, finally like that kind of, that seal's removed. And then, so then it's kind of like nice that that's all out there. And then we can figure out how to move what happens next for priest, what happens next for the parishes. And so like that next step really begins the light process. So this really kind of is the first kickoff kind of really of the process. So, which is exciting. So that will be good. And just, a lot of things to be grateful for. So got to go to like last week before the snow hit, went to Great Wolf Lodge with my family, which was great. And just got to spend some time with my mom, my dad, my sister, brother-in-law, and their boys. So that was just a blast. And it was a nice little reprieve from everyday life. So yeah, overall going really well. So yeah.
Good.
So I guess, do we begin with a prayer then?
I always forget what we do.
I think we start with the prayer and then we do the question.
Okay.
I think.
You want to pray us?
Sure. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty and ever-loving Father, we give you thanks for the gift of this day. We give you thanks for the many gifts you bestow upon us that exemplify beauty, which displays to us your goodness and which helps to draw us more deeply into the mysteries of your love, your truth, your goodness, and all the many other things that it draws out of us. We ask you might send down your Holy Spirit upon both of us this evening to speak the words that anyone who may be listening to this podcast needs to hear, that you may help us to give just words to the truth and goodness of beauty that oftentimes can seem downplayed in our culture, which can sometimes seem exploited by our culture, and help us to recognize beauty as the gift that it is to us, your children. In your name we pray. Amen. In the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. I've got a bad joke.
A bad joke. Go.
What a beautiful prayer.
I'll take it.
It's sincere though.
Yes.
It's not actually like a joke. Like
It's not like, beautiful prayer about beauty.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
kidding.
Yeah. No, actually, the thought came to my mind, man, that was beautiful. Oh, Grace,
Yes.
good one.
Yes. Nice. Oh, yeah.
So, as we're talking about beauty, I do have a question for you, and
Okay.
it's extremely profound. That's sarcasm.
Yes, I figured as much.
So, it's very simple. In what way this day have you experienced beauty?
In what way this day have I experienced
So,
beauty?
obviously, the Mass,
Yes, obviously the Mass.
but
That's a good one. You know, actually, I was thinking about this today. You know, like I've finally gotten some like houseplants in my office. And I was just like, not that they in themselves are like super beautiful, but it does give like a different feel to my office. And it's kind of like, oh, this is homey. And I had to appreciate like my mom came in and helped me kind of like decorate my office and like organize things in a certain way and gave me some feedback. I think you also give me feedback for spiritual direction if you like, oh, okay, this all works. And I was just like, oh, this is actually kind of like, it feels like very much so at home. Even if I am doing work, my office feels beautiful. So I think I experienced it there. And yeah, so I think that was a place that I certainly experienced beauty today. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
In the workplace.
In the workplace.
Very good.
Yes.
Wow.
Very, very St. Josemaria.
I was going to say, how Opus Dei of
Yeah,
you.
yeah, I know. How fitting.
Freshly back from retreat.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So retreat was also great. So that's also how I was doing. Retreat was awesome. So, yeah. So what about you?
So I kind of experienced beauty through another person in his experience of beauty. So kind of a long story, but today when I was at work, I guess for people who don't know, I work at a parish office.
Yes.
Not his parish office, but a parish office. And there was, long story, but it happened that there was a man who needed to go to the church and find a certain place in the church, and I had to show him. And I'm not gonna lie, at first I was like,
Got to do this
why do I have to
task.
do this task? And like,
Yeah.
yeah, like this is like, why is this happening in the first place?
Sure.
Anyway, long story, but anyway, so I don't even know this guy. He's a stranger. He comes, we walk through the office, go into the church, and like right as we go into the church, like I turn on the lights. This is St. Joseph Church in Wapak, by the way. And I turn on the lights and he just goes,
Yeah. That's awesome.
it was awesome. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah. And I was like just explaining to him like where the thing was that he needed, and just showing him everything that he needed. But he was just like, wow, this is beautiful. And I was like, yeah, it really is. Like it's really lovely.
It is really, really lovely.
Yeah. Cause we recently had like the sanctuary was redone, and now there's a high altar and new paintings and just all kinds of
Oh, yeah.
restored beauty, because it was once like that, more
Yes.
like that.
More like that. Yes, correct.
And so it's been restored to its former glory,
Yes.
you might say.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of interesting because he was just taking it all in. And then he like started telling me that he doesn't go to that church, but his grandparents did. He's like, I haven't been
cool.
in this church for years, and it's just beautiful. And I was like, yeah, it really, really
Yeah,
is.
that's awesome.
And so it was just really interesting to have that, kind of providential to have that today,
Yeah.
because it was like that, that just says a lot about beauty, in that it makes us pause.
It's arresting.
It is. Yes, that's a great way of putting it.
Yes, I've always thought that beauty arrests us. Like a beautiful church kind of like, it's like in the sense that whenever you arrest, you're kind of like stopped in your tracks and like, just like you have to reflect in the best way possible. Yeah. So beauty is arresting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it was really cool to see him be arrested
Yeah.
by the beauty that is the dwelling of the Lord. And that it just like,
Yeah.
it like beauty has this way of like forcing us to like slow down too.
Yeah.
Which is which is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, like, that may even be like a good, because I was thinking that I forgot earlier today. I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that particular part of the movie and also in the book. But like when they're going through Moria, which is like rather dark and dingy, but then like Gandalf says, should we risk a little more light? And then just like, as they do it, and it's like, oh man, like, and everybody's eyes is just open to it because most people living then had never seen the halls of Khazad-dûm as it's known, like the dwarf city. And you can just tell, like, in the movie they do a good job, but even in the book, it's just like this very arresting thing for the fellowship. It's just like, holy cow. Like, this is amazing, you know? And yeah, so just like that aspect of beauty that just makes us stop in our tracks. And I think that's one of the great things that like Tolkien does in Lord of the Rings is through the simple folk of the Shire who've never seen some of this beauty, I think he invites even like the people who have seen it again and again to like see it through new eyes. You know, that like because like they've just been in the Shire, so they like see this for the first time and it's like, whoa, elves, beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, like, so like seeing it for the first time through somebody else's eyes in some ways helps us to like bring us back to like, oh, this is really beautiful. Like, you know, like it's something that you don't really appreciate. Like
We
somebody
take it for granted.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. So like somebody pointed that out about my home parish. Like, oh yeah, I went to your home parish. Like one of my first, I was like, oh, cool. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. I was like, and then I went in there, you know, whenever I was home visiting, I was like, actually I need to go in and just like look. I was like, oh wow, it is beautiful. Like I kind of forgot that it is a beautiful little church. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we take it for granted.
Yeah, we take it for granted. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing that, you know, as we delve into this, like obviously we're talking about Lord of the Rings, but I even think from a Catholic perspective, I think that there was like a great emphasis, and it's like an important emphasis, like put on truth in like the way that the faith was taught for many, like since the Second Vatican Council. And like, that's a great thing. I mean, sometimes that was also downplayed, so it's understandable why like that was defended. And we talk about goodness, so like the goodness of family life and like all those things. Again, all really, really important things. But one thing I've just begun to think is you don't hear like beauty really talked about a whole lot because it's like hard to articulate. I think that's one of the issues. But I think we've also kind of like, we've grown ashamed of it in a way. In that I think, you know, I've had conversations with people before to where like I've mentioned just how beautiful Holy Angels is, which it is like that, those high altars, like, oh man, like you look at it and it's like every little like piece coming off, and there's like on the main spire, there's probably like 40 little pieces like sticking off. It's like somebody hand carved each one of those little pieces along with like everything else in that entire
Statues of the angels too.
Yeah. Incredible.
I mean, it's just beautiful. Yeah.
All of it is just like incredible. The paint's been well done and like all of it, and the stations are great. But like I mentioned, just like we have a church that's just like built for worship. Or people say like, well, are you saying that like, you know, I won't list names of like examples of like churches that maybe are, you know, not like seeking the same kind of ideal that Holy Angels is, you know, in terms of like it's a desire to like draw you in with beauty, to like, oh my gosh, like so much stuff like here that's just beautiful, that kind of like overwhelms you and like is a mystery that even after being there and praying many, many hours in that church, like still just like can take my breath away at different points in which I just see it. But people will be like, well, is like, so are you saying like these other churches aren't like Catholic? And it's like, what do you mean by that? And it always like comes out to like this thing to where there's almost like this thing that if you say that a church like built in the round is less beautiful, like that's offensive. because like we're like, well, it has its own like kind of like we've treated now beauty as subjective instead of objective. Like obviously the objective is meant to impact us subjectively. So like beauty in and of itself, like, yes, like the great thing about beauty is I think it impacts us in a way subjectively that truth and goodness don't even do. Like beauty just goes straight to the heart of our hearts when we encounter it.
Because you can't deny it.
Yeah, because you can't deny it. But people do try. You know, and so I think that that's one of those things that you even see, like, this is like part of Tolkien's whole thing, is he notes that as the beauty of like Middle Earth is disappearing, there's like this longing that's built into his work, like to get back to Eden, essentially, like what originally was. And I think that there's something that he gets so fundamentally right about that. Like he gets that sense of like Eden, that we all have like this like inborn nostalgia, I'll call it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That like, even if we've never experienced it, like obviously we've never experienced Eden, there's still like this desire in our heart to be there. And so I think he does a great job of communicating that through his work. And yeah, and so it's just one of those, kind of cool things that I think he details very, very well in Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Yeah. Even like his, just like his emphasis on like the land and just like how much he details like as there. So I'm finally getting my act together in reading The Fellowship of the Ring. So, and what I'm noticing is actually, and then that's where I'm at, the House of Tom Bombadil. But what I'm noticing is just like how like rich his language is in describing the setting and just like the beauty, or even sometimes like the terror of it, but just like how the attention, the emphasis that he puts on that.
Yeah. And it's one of those, I think I realized that that's something that I think Tolkien does very well. Like Matt Fradd has a video which was shown to a group of high schoolers, I heard, and high schoolers did not appreciate it because Matt Fradd's like very direct, and he's like, you know, if you're going to say, you can't tell me that that you actually believe that Beyonce's music is more beautiful than like Puccini's, you know, like the Italian composer Puccini, or like Bach. And like they took offense at that, but it's like at the same time, like, yeah, like, are you actually going to argue with that? Like,
yeah.
Like, it's not as like, I'm not trying to throw any like aspersions against Queen Bee, you know, like, I'm just saying that, like, I mean, like, it's not like, you know, Handel's Messiah, you know, it's not going to be the Mass of the Angels. Like, that beauty is just objectively higher. And I think that that's something that Tolkien just imbues in his work so clearly.
Yeah. That's what I'm learning.
Yes.
And what you know.
Yes.
Yeah. I think so I'll just be honest, like, I feel like I don't have I can maybe have a couple reflections here and there about the beauty in the Lord of the Rings, but a lot of like my thoughts on beauty are just like not directly related to the Lord of the Rings.
We'll share some of those thoughts.
So, some of those thoughts. One, which is like, and I don't quite understand it, but like I feel like we, myself included, have been like so hardened to beauty, and it's like, why? I mean, like sin does that.
Yeah, but so hardened to beauty, what do you mean by that?
Okay, that is a wonderful question, because I think it's kind of like a faceted answer. Like, one, we don't recognize it sometimes. Two, we don't soak it in, like when it's there, like, and we can maybe kind of recognize, like, oh, that was beautiful, that was a beautiful moment, or that, you know, whatever was beautiful. Like, we struggle to rest in that and to take it all in.
Yeah.
What other ways?
So we fail to like pause and like take it in as it's happening. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other ways in which we...
Well, one thing I think, like, then on the opposite end of like that spectrum is like we try very, very hard to like hold on to it. So like one thing I was thinking about is, so I'm like going to connect, so I'll connect this back to Lord of the Rings, but like I remember that JP2, you know, he said that like the problem with pornography is not that it shows, you know, too much, but that it shows too little. Mm-hmm. Because it's like trying to exploit something that is so incredibly beautiful, like a sharing in of God's own creation that's meant between a man and a wife in their own privacy and their own intimacy. Mm-hmm. And we try to exploit that. Mm-hmm. So we try to take in as much as possible. I mean, like, I think I heard like a crazy stat once that like an adult website uploaded like 68 years of content because people just like try to take more and more and more and more, like it's never enough. Mm-hmm. And I think even in Lord of the Rings, actually one of the things that, you know, Tolkien, he really, 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 he's very anti-industrial. Mm-hmm. Like he would have gotten along with tree huggers pretty well, to be honest. Like I think that's something people sometimes fail to like recognize in his own thinking, is the destruction of natural beauty is like one of the greatest travesties in his mind. Mm-hmm. And while at the same time also like admiring the craftsmanship of elves and dwarves. Mm-hmm. But like it's very clear that he's very critical of like Saruman, because he, instead of like Moria or, you know, even like other instances where great beauty is made, it's always meant to be an imitation of the form. So actually there was a quote from, so it kind of follows, it's taken from like somebody commenting on St. Thomas Aquinas defined beauty as this, or defined as like an object's, how do you know how much beauty does an object have? It says an object has more goodness and beauty when it achieves a higher level of perfection in its form. So like the closer it is to like the ideal, mm-hmm. the more beautiful it is. And one of the interesting things I think about the way that he describes beauty and the way that it's made is like Gimli receives the, you know, we always talk about Gimli receiving Galadriel's hairs. Mm-hmm. He's trying to imitate the form. He's not trying to like make something more beautiful than Galadriel. Mm-hmm. He's trying to like capture an aspect of her beauty that's been, and receive what's been given, instead of trying to take it and like wrangle it for all it's worth, trying to exploit it. He simply receives what he's been given, which is 3 strands of hair. And then he will eventually go on to make some things that are very beautiful and to try and like be closer to that form, to build something beautiful where we'll recognize it'll never be as beautiful as the original form. Mm-hmm. And that's even what we do with churches. Like, yes, of course, it's never going to be as beautiful as heaven, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. Mm-hmm. But we also need to have the humility to say, like, as beautiful as Holy Angels is, heaven's going to be a million times better, mm-hmm. a million times more beautiful. And so I think oftentimes we try to exploit, we try to make it more beautiful, so we love novelty. So I think we try to exploit it instead of simply receiving it. Mm-hmm. And we try to take more out of it than it can give us, because beauty is something to be received, something that's given and received, not something that we can take and then like
grasp onto
and like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that that's something that Tolkien pulls out with his criticism of Saruman, that like, because it's even kind of like a little tongue in cheek, like Gandalf actually makes fun of Saruman, that like, you know, as they go into Isengard, they're like, oh, this place is just ugly. He's like, yeah, he was trying to imitate Sauron, and he could not even get close to him. And it was like, ooh,
Gasp.
it's like a little burn there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like you couldn't even do ugly as well as Sauron. So
Yeah.
like, give it up, man. Like, you know, but yeah, so I think that that's one of those things is like, we try to exploit it, which again, I think in our culture is exemplified by pornography. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. It's just fascinating because it's like, yeah, to a certain degree, like we recognize that we long for it, or we recognize that we long for something,
Yes.
but struggle to see all the ways in which, even in very little ways, like the Lord is trying to bring about some degree of fulfillment to that longing, which will never be fulfilled in this life.
Yes.
But like, yeah, just the many beautiful things that we just kind of gloss over. That's kind of what I'm stuck on, is because I think I see that in myself too. Like how many, just like beautiful encounters or situations that I'm in that I don't take for what they are.
Yeah.
And I fail to be, it really is like the gift of awe, I think.
Yeah.
A lack in that gift, you know, that sometimes does that, to where it's like, yeah, just being blinded by other things and not being able to see the beauty.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even like, I guess kind of what I was sort of getting at with like being hardened to it is like, even just so like, you know, sin, but also just like seeing so much ugly, like seeing so much ugliness in the world, in ourselves, just like the places of our hearts that are just not good.
Yeah.
And seeing that out in the world as well can make it really, really hard to see beautiful things, because it's like, because I think in some ways, like, not to get like too psychological, but like we put up walls, like,
Yeah. Well, that's true.
I'm putting up walls in my heart because I know what's out there and it's not all that good. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to allow myself to be fooled by anything that appears to be beautiful, you know, like we do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just heard someone today, which it was very, very endearing, but she said like she's trying to be more like a child, like she's trying to be more
Yeah.
childlike. And so I know, like for myself, that's something I want to work on as well, but just like being able to see, like, oh my gosh, I have the most amazing video of my godson, our godson actually, when around Christmas time, when they were putting lights on the tree and they plugged in the tree, and I mean, like, he could have exploded
Yeah.
out of just like his amazement at the beauty that he was beholding.
Yeah.
And like, oh my gosh, like, you know, as grown-ups, like we see that and we're like, oh, that is just darling.
Yeah.
But like, I think we also have to recognize, I used to be that way.
Yeah.
I was once that little boy or that little girl who saw the world, who saw the beauty of the world.
Yeah.
I want that to be restored.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so I think it's, yeah. I don't know. That's my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah, because like a lot of that, whenever even Therese, you know, talks about becoming a little child, it's like, I also think it's the reception part of it. So basically it's like the willingness to receive what we need is the way that like Jacques Philippe describes like Teresa's way of little childhood. It's not just simply like becoming like a little child, but instead like willing to receive what is given. And I think like it's true, like we need to recover some of that awe, but even in a sense, like the fact that it's no longer there, like we shouldn't necessarily lament, because I think the more beauty you encounter, like in some ways, the more part of it becomes. And as it becomes a more part of you, you become more comfortable with it in some ways as well. So it's not like always necessarily a bad thing, because I think to go back, like we can sometimes try to capture a beautiful moment instead of like accepting it when it comes, which I mean, in many ways is not like often, you know, like I wish I could say every time I celebrate Mass, it's like amazing, but it's not. And I just like accept that for the gift that it is, because I still love saying it. I still find great consolation and comfort in that. But I also like have learned to like not lament that I don't have the same kind of like feeling I did when I first started saying Mass. Just because like I'm used to it. And sometimes it still strikes me. And I'm grateful for those moments. But I think just like allowing those moments to come when they do and not being ashamed. Because, you know, like I think sometimes we can even like, we can be just ashamed of like the encounters that we have with beauty.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
And struggle to share that.
Yes.
Or to express that.
Yeah, struggle to express it, but I think even to like share it. Because like because we see it in such exploitive terms. You know, like if you share like a powerful experience, like a beauty of a Mass, people are like, you really like all that hoity-toity stuff. I even think like I was like thinking like, well, I don't want to share that one. And it's like, oh, that's kind of like cuts exactly against the example of like what I want to say. But I just remember having a few years ago, like I was at Mass and it was like during one of the readings, I just happened to like look out of the crowd, which I don't do like super often. I looked out and it was just like the light was coming in through one of the windows just perfectly. And this mother with her like daughter, who I think had just been born, like she was like a month or two old. Like she was just like lifting her up and the light was just hitting both of them correctly. That was just like a great gift from the Lord. Just like a moment that I was just like privy to between mother and child. It was just like, oh my gosh, it's like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And it was just like a snapshot and then it was gone. And so I think even like we don't allow ourselves to receive that, because it's like, when we see beauty, I think in some ways we catch a glimpse of something that we only see the other side of the veil. And so there can be like a part of us that's like, well, I shouldn't see that quite yet. Right. But then at the same time, we have to be willing to accept those like moments where the Lord breaks in. So like that little childhood, I think we sometimes paint as like in all the other ways that children, but really it's like primarily dependence upon the Lord and just simply receiving what he gives us. Like, because I think also part of that spiritual childhood is he knows what's best for us. And sometimes it's like, this isn't helping. But just like, you know, as we can see from the example of our own parents, like they know that like, okay, we're not going to give this to you right now because this is like, you need to learn to be able to do without for a period of time. Or even if you like, you're upset because you wanted to run across the street to see somebody that's like, you can't run across the street. You're not allowed to do that. That's bad because you could get hit. In the same way, like, as it sometimes feels like the Lord's holding us back, like we just have to receive what he gives. And we have to just trust in total dependence. And that even comes with beauty. He'll give it to us when we need it. And we can bring more moments into it, because also to be childlike, like children love bringing in little gifts for their parents, their aunts, their uncles, like whoever it is, right? And so, yeah, I think that in relation to beauty, we have to just be willing to receive those moments when they come. Like,
Yeah.
like we can surround people with beauty, but sometimes it just has to like that moment with child and mother, like it just has to strike somebody at the right moment, in the right light, in the right time. And that's like something that you got to leave to the Lord, because that's even, people have commented like, Father, like we know that you just want Mass to be beautiful. Like we know that. And I'm like, thank you. And it's like, it's not like I expect people to have like a powerful experience every single time. But I want to provide as much of an opening as possible and infuse as much beauty as we can at appropriate times, so that way somebody can have that encounter. Like that it strikes somebody at just the right way at the right time. So like do what I can, but then allow the Lord to do the rest. Like just trust that he's going to work that out. And that's sometimes all we can do. We can surround ourselves with beauty, and I think we should probably imbue more beauty in our world, but just because somebody doesn't receive it doesn't mean that it's not beautiful. And it doesn't mean that at some point the Lord won't use it. Whether it's us or whether it's somebody else that has an experience, won't use it to draw, like, just give us a glimpse of the eternal.
Yeah, that's great. The humility of a child. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, just being willing to receive what is given. Takes a lot of humility to be able to do that. Good. So this is kind of like stray-ish thought, but kind of like more Lord of the Rings-ish, is like something I was thinking about beauty, like what does it do for us?
Yeah.
And like it motivates us, you know? Like did you have that?
I put beauty saves / motivates.
Nice. Sweet.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, because like, you know, like, yeah. Like you think like Frodo, like to save the Shire, the beauty of the Shire, he has to take a risk.
Yeah.
They all have to take a risk. And yeah, so in that way beauty also like strengthens us, but it propels us to do some crazy things.
Yes.
Crazy in a good way. In ways that like other things can't really motivate us.
Yeah.
The way that beauty can, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And like even just like on a very just kind of like a very basic example, like I was thinking about like a guy who wants to ask a girl to dance. Like I'm not a guy, but I can imagine it's a pretty like terrifying experience.
Yeah.
And so like why would he do that? He's motivated by the beauty that he's beholding.
Yes.
And so he says it's worth the risk.
Yeah.
And like it's worth the struggle and all the demons I'm going to have to fight before I even get the words out. You know, like,
Yeah.
so beauty is a great motivator.
Yeah.
You want to add to that? Do you have anything to add?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true. I think the example of like that for men, like beauty is something that we are meant to cherish and protect. And thus, like, why, like you mentioned, like the example of like one of our man falls head over heels and like all of a sudden that girl becomes his everything. And so it's like, now I need to like get my life in order so that way I can be like worthy of her, but then also so that way like I can provide a house so that way she can make it a home. Like all these things that like happen, right? Like I always talk about, you know, that line in the in the consent, it says like, honor you. And I asked, like, what do you think honor means? And and I think like for, like whenever it comes to honoring his wife, I always tell guys like, that means that you like acknowledge the feminine beauty that's within her, inside and out. Like, honey, you're beautiful. Like that's what you say. Mm-hmm. That's the catchphrase for honoring your wife. It's like putting her on a pedestal and just being like, you're amazing and you're beautiful. Mm-hmm. And then I talk about like, then obviously women also, I was like, to honor your husband, it's like, you're the man. Like you're the one that I entrust this beauty to. That is me. And also like, you're the man. So I know that you're going to protect me. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think that as you're mentioning that, like it motivates and it can absolutely change a man's perspective. Like, I think we're impacted by it in such a way that it is received. And I mean, you even see that with Aragorn, that's like part of the motivating factor there throughout the entire story. Mm-hmm. And the encounter with beauty then also like can cause like lifelong loyalties, So even with that, I was thinking about sharing. So I took a picture of it a while back, so I did not have the page number on it, so I couldn't go back and be fancy in the book, so I'll just have to read it off my phone. Please forgive me.
Be fancy.
Yes. But yeah, so this is a passage from the Two Towers, so I believe they're in, like this is the part of the story where they're like in Ithilien, so before they encounter Faramir. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So So Gollum disappeared. He was away some time, and Frodo, after a few mouthfuls of lumbus, settled into deep into the brown fern and went to sleep. Sam looked at him. The early daylight was only just creeping down the shadows under the trees, but he saw his master's face very clearly, and his hands too, lying at rest on the ground beside him. He was reminded suddenly of Frodo as he had lain asleep in the house of Elrond after his deadly wound. Then, as he had kept watch, Sam had noticed that at times a light seemed to be shining faintly within. But now the light was even clearer and stronger. Frodo's face was peaceful. The marks of fear and care had left it, but it looked old and beautiful, as if the chiseling of the shaping years was now revealed in many fine lines that had before been hidden. Though the identity of the face was not changed. Not that Sam Gamgee put it that way himself. He shook his head, as if finding words useless, and murmured, I love him. He's like that, and sometimes it shines through, somehow. But I love him whether or no. And so you just like see this kind of thing that it's like his willingness to follow Frodo everywhere is born by this like beauty that he sees in him, not in the same way that we behold like an exterior beauty, but like something that shines from within him that motivates him to be like, this guy's like worth following to like the pits of hell. Mm-hmm. And so like that puts this like wonderful kind of peace within his soul. And I think that gift of just being able to like catch that little glimpse there, like shows him like, yeah, that beauty that he says, like, and that even the going on of years. So like to go back to the idea of like an object has more goodness and beauty when it achieves a higher level of perfection in its form. Like the way that we become more beautiful is like by becoming more human. But then also like the way in which I become more beautiful, that, you, Grace, become more beautiful is by becoming more fully who we are. And so there's this like, so like the fine and far from like the years making Frodo less beautiful, like it is actually like as he goes through this entire experience, it reveals more and more of who he is. And as a result, like reveals more and more of who he is in the good way. Mm-hmm. And so like this is like kind of perfecting his character. And as it's doing so, it makes him more beautiful. And so I just love that line where it says like, it's just like that, like the lines that have not been there before were like something had been chiseled away that and revealed the beauty that was underneath. Essentially, it was like, oh, that's a great way of putting like the way that age should be for us. It reveals more of our hearts and the goodness of our hearts. Not that our hearts grow cold and black, but instead that it reveals the original goodness that was meant for us. Of like who, Father Jared really is. Like who God truly created him to be. I guess that's the way to say that. Like who God truly made him to be. Who I am in God's eyes. And not as like the world, like do what you want, but instead like, no, as God desires me to be. As I conform more to that, which is the true form of who I am, the more beautiful I become. In the same way for you. Like, right? Like becoming more fully who grace is. And God means her to be. You become more beautiful. And that's just the way that like this works. And so I think that's even one of those motivating factors. Like that's why Sam follows Frodo. He's not just like a loyal lapdog.
Yeah.
He sees something more than that. Yes.
Right. That's good. I would even say that's beautiful. Sorry. So many dumb jokes.
It's so many dumb. It's the same dumb joke that you just keep repeating pretty much. Yeah. Just saying.
Thanks for calling me out on that. There's something though. I feel like I think I wrote some examples down. Maybe not. But as you're just talking about, like the loyalty of Sam basically was motivated by the beauty of Frodo, essentially, and just the beauty of who he is. And I don't remember if I took a picture. Oh, I might have taken a picture when I was reading the book and maybe didn't even write it down. But there were just a few, and I don't have my phone on me, but there were just like a few like moments where, yeah, I took a picture now that I'm saying this, to where Sam was just saying like, he's recalling a conversation that he had with the elves. In the book, it's with the elves. Where they're like, don't leave him or whatever. And he,
yeah.
Basically, he just like keeps reaffirming with very like stubborn in a good way, like determination. Like I'm going everywhere with him, and I'm not leaving. And just that like beauty is powerful in that way.
Yeah, it is.
And so it's just like a really, really good motivator. Yeah, that it just kind of even like so I haven't really got to this in the books, but like Sam had to kind of like put on hold the beauty of Rosie in some ways.
Yeah.
To which he comes back to, but like and actually he comes back even more beautiful and but to go on the mission with Frodo, which is kind of a fascinating thing too.
Yeah.
Do they mention her in the books?
So they do mention her at the end. I don't think she really shows up at the beginning, so I think that's kind of an after the fact kind of thing.
Okay.
So I'm trying to remember if I think she might have been mentioned somewhere in the Fellowship, but I don't think she was mentioned really closely with like Sam.
Okay.
Until later on, because her and Sam do get married. That's kind of a big part of the story. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because then he also puts off his return to Frodo because of Rosie. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I think it's still like a similar thing that works throughout the books with, again, Aragorn's like the typical one. And so, yeah. And so like, again, going back to that point that beauty is something that's received, or I guess beauty, the one who is beautiful, it is given. So God is always the one who gives beauty. So he's the one who gives. We can't take, we must receive. So it's like something that God gives us, but we also need to be willing to receive it. So like you said, we can become hardened to it, but we can also try to like take it and wrangle it for ourselves instead of receiving it openly from him. And I mean, even see this in the example of Eowyn, who is, who like Wormtongue tries to obtain, not by becoming like beautiful himself and becoming more honest, but instead through like trying to side with Saruman. So that way, whenever everybody else is taken, then basically she has no other options except him or death. Right. And so you see the difference between that and then the fact that like Faramir like kind of falls in love with her in the houses of healing, and like far from like trying, it's like he just like shows her pity and acknowledges humbly her beauty, and then that eventually wins over her heart. And so there's like a big difference there in those two things, right?
Yes.
And so so like that aspect of, I think I agree. Yeah. And I think you can say the same thing for Sam. Like, I think the Rosie arc is a good thing that was an addition to Lord of the Rings. So yeah.
There's another point to beauty that I want to like talk about. So you sent this article that was like a reflection on Tolkien and beauty. And there was like a line in there that said, far from being escapist, true fantasy draws us closer to reality. I think we can even take out the word fantasy and put in beauty. Like, beauty actually draws us closer to reality. And sometimes we think that's like, I think kind of going along with like feeling ashamed or maybe just like embarrassed to like share a beautiful experience or encounter we had with someone else is like, they're not like, what if they aren't willing to receive that? What if they think we're just being escapist and like, they're like, well, you know, I've got all these like burdens upon me. So like almost offended, like, how dare you like tell me about, you know, this thing that was apparently beautiful.
Yeah.
And so like, I think sometimes the tendency is to think that like actually being willing to be receptive to beauty is like an escapist tendency when it's not.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting that.
Yeah. And so, but like going along with that, like true beauty draws us actually closer to what is real.
Yeah.
Like it draws us closer to reality. And like something I was thinking about is like beauty also like wounds us, but
Yes.
in a good way.
Yeah.
And because I think it and like a certain level of cooperation is needed on our part, I guess, but like it kind of makes us recognize like the places in our hearts that like are lacking.
Yeah.
And kind of like what I was talking about earlier with just a desire to have some of like those childlike responses to beauty, I guess, like to have some of that restored. Like there was a moment like a few months ago and I was going through something very like painful and difficult. And but it was Sunday, I was in mass with my family, and you know, so I'm sitting in this pew of wonderful people, but I'm just like struggling.
Yeah.
And like sitting beside me is my sister. She is nursing our godson, and then my other nephew who's older than our godson. And my other nephew, like as Jonah is sleeping, like Finn just like leans down and gives him a smooch, like totally unprompted. And it was just like it, I think it brought tears to my eyes because it was like,
oh, I'm sure it would.
Yeah. It was just like, that was so beautiful. And like with like, it's hard to receive something like that when you're feeling so much pain in your heart. And like, it stands in stark contrast to some of the ugliness that we see in the world and, you know, in our sinfulness. And so it hurts.
Yeah.
And like, I was just thinking like, you know, like you hear that expression, like beauty is pain. It's normally not used in this context, but there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
Beauty is pain sometimes, but not like in the like mom's doing her daughter's hair and like, ow, mom, that hurts.
Yeah.
Beauty is pain. but in
Yeah.
a different way, like in the best way possible, if we can allow it to. Like, if we can allow the Lord to wound us
Yeah.
with beauty, that's really good.
Yeah. It is.
Because it just like it, because I think even like in that moment, like the story I shared, it's like, oh wow, like that right there, what I just experienced, like that authentic, like unprompted love that brother gave to brother, like that is a true reflection of like how things are supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's getting back to Eden.
Yeah.
And it's just, and it can hurt because it's like, oh, we are not there.
Yeah.
Like we are not home. And that is a hard thing to come face to face with, but it's a good thing. And
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, beauty wounds.
Beauty does wound. And I mean, I think in something similar said in the books too, but Gimli even makes the comment as they're leaving Lothlorien, like, I was scared of coming this place, but I think I would have been more terrified had I known the beauty I would encounter and the joy I would encounter in Lady Galadriel. Which is kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because he was like scared and did not want to go to.
Yeah.
And so he makes like that comment that like, yeah. And so I think, and because he's like wounded by it and he never really recovers. So like, yes, he and Legolas, his like friendship is the reason he goes to the sea, but it's even because like he has this desire to once again, like, yeah, just encounter that beauty again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's a, yeah, an important aspect of that. I think that's like part of the, I put like beauty sanctifies. Mm-hmm. So it like draws us up into like God's transcendence. Mm-hmm. God is not beautiful. He is beauty. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're wounded by beauty in so many, and like oftentimes like it sanctifies us because we're like touched by it. Like we can't, like you said, like we're trying to receive something we can never fully like, because the true form of beauty is God himself. Mm-hmm. And everything that we encounter that's beautiful, like is basically like a realization that we can't take that all in. But it still like brings joy. It still brings fulfillment. And thus it like encourages us to be holy because we come in contact with God. So it sanctifies, because that's what sanctify is, like contact with God. We become more holy, we become more sanctified as we see more and more moments of our lives as touching, like being touched by God. Mm-hmm. And those moments also God touching us. Mm-hmm. So there's that very real thing that it's sanctifying us. Mm-hmm. By its wounding.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, which can hurt.
Yeah.
I would like thinking about like when we were kids and like we would fall off the bike or just like run and fall down and scrape our knee, and there's like rocks in our knee, and mom would take us to the bathroom to clean up the wound. Mm-hmm. And there was always this, so like there were a few different like antibacterial things that she could whip out, but one of the things that I remember distinctly was it was this bottle called Bactine. Do you know it?
Yes.
Do you have that? And like it was terrifying when she would like bring it out, because it was like it's gonna hurt really bad.
Yeah.
Because like when she would spray it on, she'd say like it'll kind of bubble and it will sting, but that's how you know that it's healing and it's getting like the bad things out.
Yeah.
And like, which is like, I think true, like for like generally like in the spiritual life, but also in our experience of beauty. And when it wounds us, like it does have the ability to draw out the poison.
Yeah.
And draw out the bacteria. which can, if not drawn out, can cause more infection and festering. And so like, and so like I think maybe just like paying attention to those moments to where like it kind of, we experience something beautiful and it kind of hurts, like maybe just to like step back and say, why did that hurt?
Yeah.
Okay, because like maybe I just encountered someone being like extremely generous to someone else and I'm kind of like, it stings.
Yeah.
Like that was beautiful, but it stings. Why? Oh, because I'm really lacking in generosity.
Yeah. Or I'm just jealous.
Or I'm just jealous. Or maybe both.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that the Lord has touched that wound, let's work on that.
Yeah.
You know, I heard someone say one time that she was like, man, you know, sometimes, and she said it way more eloquently. It was on a podcast that I heard a while ago, but she was like, you know, sometimes the Lord touches a wound and I'm like, ow, Lord, that hurts. But I forget that like whenever his hand leaves, like it has been more healed. Like it's been like the reason he's touching it is to heal it. And so I guess just like an appeal to let beauty sting you.
Yes.
In the right ways, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, it draws out poison.
Mm-hmm.
But then just something I thought of because of something just interesting from like a detail that's like even after the Return of the King takes place, but something that our beauty can also like not only heal, but can also like adorn others as well. So each of us has like our own particular beauty. So like one of the things that I think, which I highlighted on here, is like that elves are like specialized in like they're kind of communing with the natural world, living things, plants, animals. Like this is like that's their wheelhouse. And then the dwarves like specialize in, you know, stone making, like carving, so stone carving, masonry, blacksmithing, like all, and like making jewelry and like all these things that they do really well. So they also use natural beauty. It's like in a much more earthy level. But then the interesting thing is like at the end of the Return of the King, after they're like going back towards the Shire, Gimli and Legolas leave the fellowship because they made a deal after Helm's Deep that if they made it through all of this, Gimli would show Legolas the beauty of like underneath Helm's Deep, there are these very beautiful caves, the Glittering Caves it's called. He said, well, you'll go there, and then Legolas said, and then you'll come with me to Fanghorn, which is where the Ents are, which Gimli was scared of going into, and he said, okay, deal. So they both like show each other like their own, like reveal to each other like what's closest to their hearts. And Legolas is like left without words, and then Gimli like grows an appreciation for the natural beauty of trees that he was scared of. And it's like this great testimony to like what we each can like reveal to each other and the beauty that we possess, and we can open other people's eyes to, that the way in which like both within ourselves, like what we possess within our souls, the beauty that God desires to have within our souls, but then also the beauty that we can like reveal to others around them. And then that even comes out then at the end, like it's after Aragorn becomes king, Gimli will actually bring dwarves with him to like kind of redo some of the stonework and improve it in Minas Tirith. And then actually, you know, Legolas will come in and like add more green space essentially. So like some beautiful gardens. And so they both like use their beauty to like adorn, to quite literally adorn like Aragorn's kingship. But it's even like that our like one, like obviously Aragorn's like a good image of like Christ the King. So like our beauty can like adorn the Lord's kingship in some ways on this earth. So we can like do that ourselves, and we should like seek to do that to add beauty to this world. But then also like that we can adorn our friends, even like with our friendship, that we add something to them, to their own beauty. So yeah, so that's just like something that like it draws out the poison, but then it also adds to what we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfume in place of poison.
Perfume in place of poison.
I was trying to think
Yeah.
of a good way to put
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know. Yeah, so I didn't know about the Gimli and Legolas thing.
Yeah.
What they do, yeah, the deal that they make.
Yes.
And then also that they come back. I saw that you made a note about that, but that they come back to. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I think that's one of those things too that we need to
Yeah.
remember.
I thought that maybe I had a question, but I'm not really sure if I do. So
All right. Do you have a thought?
if it come, what?
Do you have a thought?
No, not really. Well, I have a ridiculous thought.
Okay,
I just
go
now
for it.
remembered it. So the reason I started chuckling as you were describing all of that, when you when you mentioned the elves and how they had like they appreciate the beauty of like living things and plants and stuff like that, and like my shout out to Audrey, my sister, who started a new job today.
Yes.
So
Happy first day, Audrey.
happy first day, Audrey. You're doing great. But she has made the comment that Arwen's breath smells like vegetable soup. Have you not heard her say that?
No.
Audrey is convinced. She's like, we were watching like one of the movies, and Audrey just goes, or maybe not breath. She might have just said she. She's like, she smells like vegetable soup. It's like, what? So in some ways,
Oh, because
like they love plants
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff, it kind of makes sense. So anyway, as you were like playing out
the elven beauty.
the elven beauty, my mind went to Arwen smelling
Yeah.
like vegetable
Sure.
soup. So there's your ridiculous thought. Well, it's probably not the first ridiculous thought from Grace for the day, but yeah. Do you have a thought?
Do you? What else do you have on there?
I don't think so. I guess just like because I guess I can't like talk about Lord of the Rings without at least once mentioning Smeagol.
Yeah.
So like there is a scene when they're in and I don't even know which movie it is or book, so you'll have to help me. But when they're in the Dead Marshes.
So it's the beginning of the Two Towers.
Okay.
Yeah, in both the movie and the book.
Okay. And like Smeagol starts like talking to Frodo, and Smeagol, like, how do I say this? I struggle to say that he's wise because that seems like an unwise thing to say. But he knows, he's experienced. And so he sees what the ugliness of the ring is doing to Frodo. And so he has this line where he says, once it takes hold of us, it never lets go. And like in that, you just kind of see, again, like Smeagol knows the depths of the ugliness of the ring, like more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And you still see within him this longing for beauty, even though like he's not really capable at that point capable of like cooperating with that longing in a healthy way. Like it's still there. And like, what is he longing for? Freedom.
Yeah.
You know, like he's longing for freedom because he's been bound for so long. And so I guess just like, yeah, just a reflection on the beauty of freedom, and that even like the most wretched character, as people would say,
Yeah.
like this longing still lives within him. And even in that moment, like in that moment where he's able to like relate with Frodo, like I'm struggling to say this because it seems wrong, but it's like, is that in and of itself not a beautiful moment?
Yeah.
Where he is just able to like say, I feel that weight too.
Yeah.
And I understand that once it takes hold, it never lets go. Look at me. I'm proof of this.
Yeah.
Which is pitiful and horrible.
Yeah.
But there's some beauty in that he's in a way sharing that. And you just still see that longing in him, that it's not all lost.
Yes.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
It's true. It is a beautiful moment.
Okay.
Well, no, I mean, so like to your point, like we talked about drawing out poison, we talked about adorning, but also like beauty shares. So like even the most ugly of experiences, because this is something, you know, like I'm a big war nerd, because I like love those period history, and I find that a lot of like the really great military leaders are more like kind of match my personality, and so it's like I glean something from them that I just like can't from others.
Yes.
Other people who talk about leadership, and in part because I think also like it's life or death stakes, and like whenever it comes to, you know, salvation of souls, we are literally talking about life or death, spiritual life or death. But like that's just kind of an aside, so to explain what. But like in reading like some of the great memoirs, it's like some of the ugliest moments of like humanity are also moments like to where you see like the great beauty of like the inner soul. Like I actually there's this this person who highlights, like calls, Hacksaw Ridge, like Desmond Doss, he calls it like the journey of a beautiful soul. That like, even though it's like this horrendous situation, like they called it Hacksaw Ridge for a reason. But yet he maintains like his like code and his integrity. And that actually gives like the other soldiers strength. Like where they go back up again, it's clear that like his example is the one that like now motivates them. And so it's like by sharing those experiences, beauty can be had. Like there can be beauty in those moments where we see a family grieving together, and you see like a son comfort his mother that's just lost her husband and his father. Like it's beautiful, it's sad, it's painful. But like in that sharing, that moment, that sharing that grief, there's beauty. This is a horrendous situation of like soldiers doing horrendous things to one another. But then again, like Desmond Doss carrying those men out, like one more, Lord, just one more. It builds up, like in those moments, it's like the sharing of that experience is beautiful, and it's a beautiful witness. And so you kind of have in those examples just this thought that like, even though it is something that's horrendous, and terrible and in many ways ugly, there's still beauty. And even like the cross is the example par excellence of that. Jesus Christ, the God-man, nailed naked to a tree, bloodied, beaten, reviled. It doesn't get any uglier and any more horrifying than that. We killed the God-man. But at the same time, it's also the most beautiful act of love ever. So again, like, because he's God, even that which is ugly can be made beautiful by love. So I think to your point about like that being a beautiful moment, even though it's like, it's true, it can be. The sharing of those kind of experiences can be beautiful. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was beautiful.
Oh boy. Darn it.
It wasn't a joke though, that was.
Yeah, that was just a comment.
Yes, just a comment. An ironic comment.
Fair enough.
I'm kidding.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Hmm. Do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah. I guess I'll just ask because like we talked about this a little bit earlier, but like, and you've obviously hinted at your own experiences of beauty, but as like a man, I have my own experience of it, which is like, I think markedly different would be my guess than like that women typically see it. I don't know if you could give any sort of insight into like the feminine, which is really like is the like beauty, like for I think men, like we're more oriented towards like truth, like that's what we fight for, and then we protect goodness and beauty. Like, so truth is like what we are, like that's what we're meant to embody. That's how we become beautiful. The more that we conform ourselves to the true, so to like the true image of courage, to like speaking the truth. So like being honest by standing up for the truths that are within the Catholic faith and also just the other truths that we experience too. Like, that's a lie. He did it. Like those kind of things that like, it's easy, like not taking a bribe, not reviling. And like, so that's how a man becomes beautiful. The feminine like embodies beauty itself. I think in a lot of ways, like that's what the feminine identity is beauty. So I guess given that like that observation, I guess I don't know if you have any thoughts on like what's maybe the difference, because then it's like there's this great passage in the book Anna Karenina to where like the main male character, like I forget now, I can't even remember what the love interest's name is, but like, and I wish actually it would have been great to have like that passage because it's wonderful. But anyways, it's like he notes that like she's ice skating and he just like notes her beauty as she's ice skating. And he just like talks about like how unapproachable she seems. Like I'm not even worthy to like gaze at her right now. He's like, I can't even come closer. But then all of a sudden this thought occurs to him like, wait, there's other people skating around her. Maybe I too could draw close to her And maybe like, and then like he imagines like even holding her hand as she's ski. And so like, so there's like this male attraction, but also like terror of approaching beauty. So beauty's almost, in some ways, I don't want to say it exactly like this, it's almost foreign to us, but yet we desire to draw it close to ourselves. We desire to have it close by, which is then like, I think the male and female complementarity in some ways expressed. So what's like the feminine experience? What do you think might be a difference in that to like the feminine experience of beauty?
That's a huge question.
I know.
It's a great question. Can you ask it maybe in a different way, or like break it down into like a different question that can help me to get to what you're talking about?
Sure. So basically, what do you think maybe is different about the way in which women experience beauty than men?
Okay.
I should have made it more simple, but I was trying to explain myself. So sorry.
That's okay. It's a great explanation. I just got a little lost in the sauce.
Yes, that's all right. Then it's not a great explanation, by the way.
What?
Then it's not a great explanation.
No, it was. I just get lost all the time.
Okay.
You can't deny that. Oh, yeah. That is fascinating. What I was expecting you to ask was like, give some examples of ways in which like you've experienced beauty.
And maybe that can be.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And part
trying
of
to
it-
think if that can help. Dang. Yeah, so I guess just like one thing that I was reflecting on with a friend, we were talking about, we went on this retreat and it happened to be an all women's retreat except for one little baby boy.
Yes.
Who was so beautiful.
Yeah.
But like we were just kind of like observing, and I think like she kind of pointed it out, but like just the so much beauty in one room, and like all of these women, like different ages, you know, different walks of life, different just different, but each one of them is so beautiful. Like there were a couple women there who are expecting, there were a couple women who were more elderly, but like just like there was a recognition that every woman in this room is just so beautiful in like her own way. And which sometimes can be hard to admit, I think, as a woman. It can be hard to, how do I want to say this? It can be hard to like accept someone else's beauty when there's a tendency to compare,
Yeah.
you know? And so I think like a woman's experience of beauty is best and most like mature, most authentic, most rich when she can first see her own
Yeah.
and receive like the love first and foremost from the Lord, and the way in which he sees her as his beloved daughter and bride, because that is, yeah. So I think like we experience beauty best when we are in the position of the beloved. If that makes any sense. That's a little bit abstract.
No, I think that's a great way of putting it.
Okay. Yeah. Because it can be really, yeah. Because like I think just like the heart of a woman like just longs to like be told that she's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so like it's really hard to like say that about someone else and experience that, and even if it's not like a person, if it's just like a situation that is objectively beautiful, like it can be hard to recognize that, I think, for a
Yeah.
woman if she doesn't first accept that in herself. Not even necessarily see, not like I look in the mirror and I'm like, wow, but like accept that her dignity that she's been given, that she's beautiful.
Yeah. That's good.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So I think, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess could articulate in this way that a woman's beauty has to be acknowledged first within, or her beauty has to be seen from within. So she has to be able to observe that within herself. So beauty emanates out from her. And that
Yeah.
also allows her then to see it in others, hopefully, if it's properly understood.
I feel like that's accurate. I would change like observe, maybe not always, but accept her beauty.
Accept. Okay, that's a good way of putting it.
Because like to observe it each and every day is like hard.
Yeah, sure.
But to accept
Sure.
that it's there.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like I was even thinking like kind of a point that you made towards the beginning of this episode was like about like that beauty should be cherished, and like you even like talking about which maybe you were going to get to this, but like the masculine heart should really like appreciate and honor and cherish beauty, especially like feminine beauty. And I was just like thinking about that, and I was like there's something to like beauty that has been like cherished and protected that like becomes all the more radiant.
Yeah.
Because like as like maybe as cheesy as it sounds, like when it's honored and cherished, like it can blossom into its full potential.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like if it's like yeah. So anyway, that was just kind of
No, I think that that's fair because like I said earlier about like emphasizing to married like couples that are preparing for marriage, like
yes,
like you're supposed to put her on a pedestal and you're supposed to like cherish her.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the same way, so like, again, this is like a very raw thought, but it's like, so like a woman accepts the beauty that is in her. And in many ways, like, you know, as men, we always like love our trophies, you know, like I still got my trophies from like, you know, like best fitted, winning showmanship, those kind of things that you like, that you have from like, and for a long time, I even had like all the medals I had from wrestling and all that kind of thing. But I think in many ways, like, well, perhaps we have a predisposition towards like certain virtues as men, like different ones for each of us. Like our beauty is almost something that's not so much obtained as like taken, but it's something that's like given and we're able to receive and like hone. So it's like the talent, so like the parable of the talents, like we're given like a talent, a gift, like a predisposition towards a virtue, but then we're asked to like do something more with it. And by doing more with it is like how we make ourselves beautiful. And so it's something that's almost outside of ourselves that's like added in, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Whereas a woman is like just in and of herself beautiful. And so I think that, and then like also like our beauty is then, as you said, like as like a woman's beauty is cherished and protected, she becomes more radiant. And I think the more that a man like protects and cherishes beauty and builds it up within himself, then that also is like adds to his beauty in a weird way. Not a weird way, in like the same way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. That is really neat. The Lord knew what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of like in receiving, like the woman becomes more radiant, and in giving, the man becomes more radiant.
Yes.
Or more beautiful.
Yes. Yeah.
That's pretty
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
Did you have something to add? Sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say that I think that's even borne out again, like, you know, and the female characters that we see, they are just like beautiful in and of themselves. Mm-hmm. And so much insofar as they like acknowledge that within themselves, like even Galadriel accepting from Gimli, like the request and the way that he kind of dotes on her, like she becomes like more beautiful in that way. And then also in the way that like there's this desire on behalf of like whether it's Aragorn, whether it's Faramir, like to protect the beauty that is still in the world. Like in the books, like it's clear that Faramir cares about the beauty of Ithilien because it's like described as the garden of Gondor. And so he has like this great love for protecting the beauty of even that part of the land because he just has like this heart for it. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like bestowed upon. And it's something that insofar as like they're defending and protecting beauty, you see their virtues come out. Like it's even one of those interesting juxtapositions of Boromir and Faramir in the books again. Like there's two things that like I actually have very great difficulty with in like the Lord of the Rings movies, and it's actually a depiction of different characters. So one is like Frodo, like Peter Jackson cut out some things that like detail just how brave and how great Frodo is that were in like the books. So then it kind of makes Frodo look a little bit weaker than he actually is in the other story, in the books. And then Faramir, who like is kind of this, you know, like I didn't even, until I saw the extended edition, I didn't even know that he like was that cruel to Gollum, and he's like actually very kind to Gollum.
Which is good.
Yeah. And the Two Towers, like he's not like I'm going to shoot. He's like, he basically comes to Frodo and he says like, hey, I'm pretty sure this creature was with you, but like, tell me if I'm wrong. So it's essentially like, hey, like we do need to protect like our position. So it's not like
Protecting. Yeah.
so like we need to protect like this area because this is like one of the last places that the orcs don't know where we're at. So like it's really important. So like you need to help us like draw him in because we can't allow him to like just run off. And so they're like, okay. So Frodo like helps him in that way, but then like they actually try to be fairly kind to Gollum, and he like of course he kind of makes his normal crybaby story, but they actually have a tendency to kind of be very very kind to him, like the Rangers. And then even like the way in which there's like this phrase that I love, or like this little line that they include that like they only stay like for a night, but then like all of a sudden Frodo and Sam like wondered what happened to their packs, and they like suspect that maybe they're getting searched, but then they're given back to them and it says that they're heavier, and they discover that like dried meats and dried fruits have been included in their packs. So it's like this generosity that he has, like, and then like even as they're discussing, like he's never tempted to take the ring, and he's like, you're going to Mordor, and they're like, well, we have to destroy it. He's like, but that like you're not going to get in. And Frodo's like, it'd be worse if I take it back to Minas Tirith and it's destroyed from within instead of from without. And Faramir's like, yep. And Sam even compares Faramir to Gandalf. But sorry, that's all to basically say that like Faramir has like this great masculine character who's like all about protecting. So he like even makes the comment that like, and this is one of the differences between him and Boromir. Boromir loved like war for the glory that it gave him. And Faramir makes the comment that he's like, I do not love the sword for the blood that it spills, but for that which it defends. And so like you see like this juxtaposition between him and Boromir. Boromir had this tendency towards pride, towards a desire for glory. Faramir, who's a very great warrior in his own respect, states that it's like, I do not love war for its deeds and the glory and the songs, but instead that which I am fighting to protect. It's like, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, that also just like reminded me of when Gandalf tells Bilbo, like, true courage is not knowing when to take a life, but when to spare one, and like how he carries that with him and spares the life of Gollum.
Yeah.
Because he, like, even though Gollum is like this wretched creature, like, he desires, in like, at least it's well depicted. I did read the book, but I don't really remember. It's well depicted in the movie, like, Bilbo is able to like see some remnant of goodness still in him, in Smeagol Gollum, and he desires to protect that. He's not being a coward.
Yeah.
He's being a man.
Yeah.
He's protecting.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it. I never thought of that. That's a good way of putting it. That's awesome.
Well, I'm excited to read more about Faramir then, because I feel like he's just kind of like, he's there in the movies, but he's not really like,
Yeah.
I didn't get attached to him like at all.
Yeah, I know. And that's like very unfortunate because it's like, it's even clear that the way that the Rangers act around him, like that there's this great love,
Yeah.
like not respect, love.
Okay.
Like they respect Boromir and they admire Boromir, but it's clear that they love Faramir. It's like a difference. So they admire Boromir. They love Faramir. They love the man, you know? And so that's like very, very, very much so like drawn out there. I'm sorry, like I'm tearing up because I love Faramir so much in the books because he's just like such a wonderful and beautiful character. Like, yeah, he, yeah, there's even like a supposition that he's like basically willing to go with Frodo. But then like kind of like Frodo's like, your place is here with your people. And he's like, yeah, I know that's where I'm supposed to be. But basically like this desire to even protect Frodo from the treachery that he knows is coming from Gollum. Because that's even clear like in the books too, is Frodo does not ever have like the wool pulled over his eyes. He knows full well what Gollum's capable of. He still pities him and he still sees the goodness within, but he still like knows that he may be up to something. And like Faramir desires to protect him from that without again being cruel to Gollum, but just like noting like there's something I don't trust about this guy, you know?
Yeah.
Understandably so. And so it's like, again, just like this wonderful depiction, I think, of like, yeah, Faramir and Aragorn, like these two great figures of like masculinity. Yeah, in the book itself. So, yeah.
That's awesome. The more they protect, the more beautiful they become.
Yeah.
The more them they become, the more that they are made.
Which then even goes to like Faramir sees his brother going down the river after he dies. And he makes the comment that like Frodo and Sam don't know what happened to Boromir. But then they hear that he died and they're surprised. But then Faramir makes the note and Frodo fesses up that Boromir tried to take, and he's like, well, I know that he died well because he was more beautiful than he ever was. And he died protecting Merry and Pippin.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because he saw his dead body.
Yes, because he saw him going down the river. Yeah, so he saw him like being pulled down the river. And Faramir makes the comment that like, I'm grieved to hear that. I'm not surprised to hear that, because he even makes that comment like, oh, Boromir. Like kind of that comment like, yeah, that sounds like my brother. He said, good man, but yeah. Two desires to basically protect Minas Tirith at all cost whatsoever, even at the danger of like endangering its integrity, which Faramir's not willing to do. And so he's like not surprised, but then he makes the comment that like, well, I don't know what happened after you departed but I'm convinced that he died well because his face was more beautiful than it ever was in this life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Neat.
Very neat. I have no other thoughts.
Nor do I. Or I have many thoughts, but none related to this particular topic.
Sure. Okay.
So, that be it?
Wait, don't you have something?
Well, yes, I was going to get to the suggestion.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yes. So, that's the end of the episode, but the monthly suggestion. So, my monthly suggestion last month, which I liked, what you did was like suggesting playing a game with the family. So, since we've talked about friendship, I am just going to suggest that you out there, get coffee with a friend. I've been getting coffee with people a lot lately, and it's just been like a great way to catch up. To just go to, a cafe and just sit. There's a blessed communion because of community. So there's a lot of people there, but then also kind of this great privacy that's just understood there because everybody else is talking too.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just been delightful to drink, just have a cup of coffee with somebody and just to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Because it kind of opens it up to whatever, because it's on neutral ground in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's it's not my house, it's not your house. It's just neutral. It's so it's a neutral site. So it's, nobody has home field advantage. Not that there's ever advantage, but there's something just delightful about getting coffee with a friend. So that's my suggestion for the month, is to get coffee with a friend.
Good. I like that.
Yeah.
And that is reinforcing the most beautiful thing, which is friendship.
Yes.
So, very well.
Yes.
Very, very, very good. Very good suggestion. So simple, too.
Yes. So, very easy to do.
Yeah. You have no excuses.
True.
Sorry. Woo. That was good.
Good. Well, do you want to take us out in prayer?
Sure. In
the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Dear Lord, thank you for the gift that is beauty. Thank you for your most sacred heart and the beauty and the rest that we find in it. Just ask for anybody who's listening or tuning in that they may be given the grace to see themselves more the way that you see them, the beauty that you've given them, that they may see that. And in a particular way for women to be able to accept and receive the gift that is their beauty, and for the grace of men to protect the beauty that they behold. And we just ask for the intercession of the Blessed Mother as we journey through life and the many beautiful things that we are gifted with. And we pray together, Hail Mary, full of grace,
the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
In the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Great. Excellent.
Bye.
Bye.